Every time I think about streets in the desert, I just am amazed at the number of years and times that I've run to and grabbed a hold of and said, God, what's going on? You know, and read my Bible and opened it up and I don't get it. Slapped it shut. Opened it up and slapped it shut. When I said, Lord, where are you? What are you doing? Help. I got nothing. And so many times I laugh because when there was nothing, I'd turn to my little bitty cheapy devotional, Streams in the Desert, and sure enough, God would speak to me. And it was always after my anxiety, after my worries, after I'd run to every other place that I can imagine to get some kind of counsel from some word or some emotion or some way to work up the right way to be led by God. And then suddenly I just go back home and or whatever it may be on that day, and I just kind of like stare around the room and look over and notice, hey, there's Streams in the Desert. Wonder if God speak through that one. I flip it open and guess what? There was something very direct and blunt for me that day. Maybe today God will be speaking to you that way. I know He often does with me. Red corn is bruised. Isaiah 28:8. Many of us cannot be used to become food for the world's hunger until we are broken in Christ's hands. Red corn is bruised. Christ's blessings oftentimes mean sorrow, but even sorrow is not too great a price to pay for the privilege of touching other lives with benediction. The sweetest things in this world today have come to us through tears and pain. God has made me bread for His elect, and if it be needful that the bread must be ground in the teeth of the lion to feed His children, blessed be the name of the Lord. Ignatius. We must burn out before we can give out. We cease to bless when we cease to bleed. Poverty, hardship, and misfortune have pressed many a life into moral heroism and spiritual greatness. Difficulty challenges energy and perseverance. It calls into activity the strongest qualities of the soul. It was the weights on the Father's old clock that kept it going. Tick, tock, tick, tock. Many a headwind has been utilized to make port in sailing. God has appointed opposition as an incentive to faith and holy activity. The most illustrious characters of the Bible were bruised and threshed and ground into the bread for the hungry. Abraham's diploma styles him as the father of the faithful, but that was because he stood at the head of his class in affliction and obedience. Jacob suffered severe threshings and grindings. Joseph was bruised and beaten and had to go through Potiphar's kitchen and Egypt's prison to get to his throne. David, hunted like a partridge on the mountain, bruised, weary, and footsore, was ground into bread for a kingdom. Paul never could have been bread for Caesar's household if he had not endured the bruisings, whippings, and stonings. He was ground into fine flour for the royal family. Like combat, like victory. If for you He has appointed a special trial, be assured that in His heart He has kept for you a special place. A soul sorely bruised is a soul elect. You know, those kind of words encouraged me in my times of suffering, that I went through some pretty massive things that to this day people are amazed that I survived. That to go from times of seeming recovery where I went from 89 pounds, to 140, and I would be miraculously, it seemed, to go back into health and be strong and go back out and work hard and work these long hours and jobs and exist for as long as I could in long periods of time where it looked like I was healthy, and then bam, once again get thrashed and smashed and crushed back down to suffering and go lower than before to 79 pounds and nearly die and be rushed into the emergency room and packed in ice and work feverishly over me to keep me alive, and back and forth and back for 10 years trying to just stay alive. And did I think about staying alive? Not me. I was busy reading my Bible, but at the same time I just did those things that everybody does. I went to work and I existed and I studied and argued with God. Have you ever argued with God? And you know, the beautiful time is that there came a time in my life when I was walking with my IV poles and my central lines and IVs in my arms, and the mirrors in the VA hospital in Long Beach, when you went from one tower to the older part of the buildings, at nighttime, because of the inner lights, they would turn into mirrors. And when I got saved, I was a born-again Christian with lots of joy, and I was so excited, glowing. And I remember the very day that it happened, that I was walking to the rec room to watch a concert that a Christian was coming to share, and it was free. And I looked in the mirror, and I saw my eyes, and I made this statement, and I wrote it in a book that I wrote at the time called Exposition of a Human Being, where I said, my eyes don't smile anymore. And I could see deadness there. I could see that I was dead. I wasn't spiritually dead, I know that, but to this day I know I wasn't spiritually dead. That day I felt dead. But my eyes did not smile. There was no twinkle, no sparkle, no delight, no seemingly, Lord, are you in there? It was as though I had already died and I was just one of the living dead. And as I trudged to the concert that night, the man that shared was Bob Bennett. And he'll never know. And maybe he will. Somebody will pass this video on to him. Hey, Bob, how you doing, man? It was cool. It was great, man. I loved it. But anyways, at the time, he sang just a tender song that had brokenheartedness in it, that of his turmoil that he had gone through. And that moment was God speaking through him to me. You may be going through a particular trial, but I can tell you this. When you've been broken enough and you've been hurt enough, when you've gone through these massive experiences, God will take those things, and if you'll let him, he'll turn it around, and he'll make you able to share that with someone that you can touch in a special way. Because Bob Bennett could not have sang to me and touched my soul had I not known that he'd gone through the same sufferings of a different type, but still suffered. Because you can hear it in the words, they were there in the lyrics, and you could feel it when he shared it. I've been there. It's not pretty, and it's not nice when you go through trials. You won't always be victorious. You will, at times, even fail miserably, and God will let you. And when you get done with your misery and your suffering and your angst and your anxiety and all the other things that you're going through, God will meet you and he will help you. There is a time and a place for suffering, but it will cause you to grow. And if he's brought it to you, endure until the end, and you'll find that God was there all along. It hurt, but he was there.